Good afternoon, everyone. I am here today with Liang Schweizer, who is the co-founder, president, and CEO of HiFiBiO Therapeutics. Previously, she co-founded Harbor Biomed and served as its chief scientific officer, or CSO, where she successfully transformed a technology platform company to an antibody drug discovery engine. She currently, as I said, runs HiFi Bio, which is an emerging multinational company in the immune system area. And what we're going to do is, Liang, first of all, welcome. Thank you here for joining us today. Very pleased to be chatting with you this afternoon on this very beautiful snowy day. So what I'd like you to do, Liang, is take some time just to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background. You've got an amazing background, so accomplished on so many levels, which we're going to dig into as we continue the discussion. But give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and your company, HiFi Bio.
Thank you, Ramani. It's a great pleasure to be here. So I view myself as a scientist. Ever since I was a little girl, I just loved science. So my career along that theme started from getting my PhD in molecular biology and genetics and went into my postdoc on cancer research at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Then spent substantial amount of my time in BMS, Bristol, Squibb, and doing cancer drug discovery and moving from targeted therapy to immune therapy. That's where we see a lot of progresses and breakthroughs for treating patients with cancer. And then I moved to Asia, headed at the Sanofi Asia Cancer Research. There I got exposed to a lot of biotech and entrepreneurship opportunities. So then I left big pharma world, went into starting startups and co-founded one company, be a CSO there, and championed biotherapeutics from a platform, mouse transgenic platform, to a pipeline of therapeutics. And HiFi Bio is the second company I co-founded and now the CEO as well as the CSO for the company. And it's been an exciting journey where we try to unlock the curative power of the human immune system to combat diseases.
That's so amazing. And, as I think about your career and how you navigated to where you are today, it's not uncommon. Although I guess it's becoming more common these days, but it certainly was not very common in prior years for individuals who are on the science side of things to switch into the corporate world. So help us understand your journey into that world of the corporate world. You are an entrepreneur scientifically, you think scientifically, scientists are innovators, entrepreneurs are innovators. So tell us a little bit about your journey from the bench, essentially, to running one company or being involved in one company and being involved in the foundation of that, plus now being involved in the foundation and founding and running of HiFi Bio, because it's a pretty impressive trajectory. So share the story there.
Yeah. So as you said, being a scientist training many years, I never thought about I will be running a company. Actually, my passion was to understand science, but I think one of the things I've been benefit from, also a trait of scientists, always being open-minded, curious about how things are working. So when I was in the big pharma times, not only I pay attention to the scientific outcomes, I also thinking about strategic positions. How do we really ensure a drug from the concept, from scientific results all the way to clinical trials to patients in market. And I got myself exposed to a lot of strategic thinking, company-wide initiative. I think that sort of laid a foundation for later on when I got into the biotech world. When the first startups I was involved in, I've started thinking about going beyond just the scientific team and the pipeline building, but how do we really ensure the company to be successful? And today, we go beyond scientific learning to learning about business, finance, legal aspects. I think as with this background of scientific training, one thing we learn with ourselves, carry with ourselves the rest of our life is ability of learning. So, I think that's a really great skills. And I think if you can learn science well, you can learn into other area as well. And I think one important part is while we're learning, be humble, we still have to have the confidence where you can lead the team on all areas. I think that's something I try to build along the way. And I think, it's a journey of learning, and I'm enjoying it so far.
That's really amazing. And, it's something that you just said just caught my attention, which is, you've got to have the confidence to do this, right? I mean, being an entrepreneur, going from the science, the bench to the corporate world, learning and sort of being thrown into areas of that you're not aware of in the past, such as finance and legal and HR and everything. Right. Running a company is no easy feat, and for scientists to go from a senior level scientist even to go from that into sort of this hodgepodge of everything else, as you said, it takes a lot of confidence. Tell us a little bit about, so there are lots of women organizations, Women in Bio, several others in our biopharma industry, and I'm sure many others in other industries that are really trying to foster the next generation of scientists, not just to step away from academia and into the corporate world, but also step into the corporate world or step into other aspects of the corporate world, such as finance and portfolio management and maybe a CEO. So how does one get confidence to be able to do that? I mean, clearly you come with a great track record. You just exude confidence, but how do scientists, and specifically or particularly women who are in the academic phase of their life, postdocs or even PhD students, graduate students, think about the corporate world and even in their minds lay out a path to get there?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think there's no easy answer or one solution fits all, but from my personal perspective, confidence also comes with a mentality. It's an attitude, and I think through my career or even earlier than that in my childhood, where we start giving ourselves opportunities to try new things, that brings the confidence. So if you have tried new and been successful before, and there's a good chance you try another new things, you could be also successful. Just, I think, challenging our limits throughout your life, even when we were a little kid, to go through your career-wise. For example, when I was in BMS, although, my day job is involved in projects and drug discovery and development, but during my spare time, I volunteered for Women in Science and Technology. I volunteered at my township health board, which I didn't really have any experience, and I just applied and got in. And I volunteered to mentor high school students, and I also volunteered to started an organization called Pacific Asia Network in BMS. Within a short period, that network was extended to be the largest network compared with other affinity groups. So challenge ourselves, go out of our comfort zone, I think is a good way to go. And when you do those things and you see good results, along the way you build your confidence that way, and volunteer your time to do things to impact the society. And when you saw the impact, you gain the confidence along the way.
So it's interesting, as I was doing a little bit of research, and I know your background, Liang, and as I was looking into some other things, I didn't realize how involved you are on the volunteer basis, and you just spoke to some of those aspects of your volunteer, your interest in volunteering. First of all, I don't know how you find time to do all that given everything else you're doing, and I know that you also have another nonprofit that you're involved in, I think. Yeah, so we can get to that in a second, but I want to kind of go back to HiFi Bio and help the group understand. You mentioned a terminology which maybe not all the audience that's going to be listening to this or seeing this video might understand, and maybe you can walk us through it. So HiFi Bio is very uniquely placed. I mean, it's in the immune oncology space, it's immune therapy space. And so I guess help us understand, the audience understand, what is the difference between targeted therapy and immune therapy, number one. And then I guess as you reflect on that, or as you describe that to us, I'd also be curious to know what your aha moment was for creating this company, pulling this together, and then walk us through your very unique and successful fundraising trajectory. Because I was very, very impressed I remember first noticing HiFi Bio because of the amount of money you raised. I didn't know you at the time. I just noticed these press releases and I thought, wow, they just raised a round. They're raising another round. And I thought, wow, what a befitting name, HiFi Bio. But it was HiFi Bio, HiFi Bio. But anyways, tell us a little bit about how the company came to be, and also maybe talk a little bit about the international component of the company.
Right. Yeah, I think you have several good questions packed in this. Yeah. And let me go through one by one. Initially, we talked about targeted therapy, moved to immune therapy. And I was fortunate enough, and at that time I was in Bristol Myers Squibb and BMS, and we're the ones launched UVA or Optivo. So the concept of biology there is, especially for cancer treatment, initially where we try to treat cancer from chemotherapy is using, drugs that could be toxic for most of the cells. We try to use that to kill the cell. When the targeted therapy come about, we start thinking about how do we have a drug that only affect the cancer cells, not targeting the normal cells, to reduce the toxicity of the chemo drugs the patients are facing. And by the way, chemo drugs are still widely applied nowadays because we haven't found enough good targeted therapy. But one of the problem about targeted therapy is often you see there are certain targets for certain cancer patients and not working for others. And also, even for that same patient responded to an initial targeted therapy, for example, if there's a kinase is hyperactive, you do kinase inhibitor, then you reduce that activity. But soon enough, the cancer cell find ways to become resistant. The kinase will have a mutation no longer responding to this kinase inhibitor. So there's really lots of limitation. So in industry, we thought about, is there any better way, systematic way to targeting cancer? So we thought about immune system is like our, defense system in our human body. So if cancer cells coming to, expand, to metastasize, can our immune system recognize this is different from the normal cells? And so we are teaching the immune system to recognize malignant cells. And that's the sort of origin of immune modulation. And the early on checkpoint inhibitor is because cancer figure out ways to really invade immune system. They're putting a brake into the immune system. And checkpoint inhibitor is release that brake in order to activate the immune system to attack the malignant cells. So initial the concept was validated through the successful launch of drugs centered around CTLA-4 and PD-1. So we are now thinking, how do we really leverage our immune system better? There are so many other ways we can activate the immune system and let them recognize malignant cells. And so at HiFi Bio, where we do is understand immune cell modulation of different immune cell types, different in the tumor microenvironment with different cancers, different patients, how the immune system would suppressed. Can we revert them back to this normal condition? And the aha moment for me to start it and to interested in HiFi Bio is HiFi Bio initially was founded by 5 scientific co-founders, 3 in Boston, 2 in Paris. They are interdisciplinary top leaders in microfluid system, B-cell antibody expertise, centered also around single-cell sequencing and analytics. So they putting their idea together, trying to come up with a way that looking for antibodies against certain specific antigen in a unique unprecedented approach. So my aha moment is visiting them in a NAP Central with only a few people in Boston where they started, and I looked at their concept. Being pharma for many years, knowing where the bottlenecks are, I see this technology. I literally was glowing, just said, wow, if I could use this technology, applying how we look for drugs, it will be really tremendous breakthrough. And I think also because of this unique angle, it helped me during the fundraising process. So we're not just another, immunomodulation. Of course, we need many of those, understand the immune modulating science, the deep understanding of disease biology, which we also have at HiFi Bio. We're building very strong, deep knowledge of centered around immune modulation. But on top of it, using the single cell, we could identify relevant targets, the best quality antibody drugs, as well as knowing how to position the drug in the right patient population. So we're looking at a paradigm shift, how we make the drugs more effectively with high quality and speed and reduce the cost. As we all know, in pharma, making a drug from the beginning all the way to market takes many years, billions of dollars, and we wanted to cut that significantly. So that's also what excites me, how we not just making drugs, how we make drug differently. And I think with this kind of mindset, we could identify some of our investors share the same, passion and some willingness to be innovative, looking for drugs in a very different way. And so up to now, we raised over $100 million, and we are in another active round, and it's another substantial amount we aim to raise. So we're very excited about that.
That is just so impressive and so amazing. It's always nice to see these success stories where someone like you, goes in, you don't have that corporate experience, but you go right in and you're amassing it and you're building a company and you are successfully fundraising. And now you're probably getting products into the clinic or getting close to doing that. So it's really exciting to see the research, the R&D, the scientific breakthrough and the innovation driving the progress, because no one wants Me Too science in our field, clearly. A couple of things I want to just have you speak to is talk a little bit about the interplay between the unique value equation in our business as it pertains to the following. The need for scientific value and innovation to drive products through to patients. So it's important that we as CEOs are focused on developing the best products for patients, while at the same time having to manage the notion of shareholder value. And when are we creating versus not creating value? And I'd like to, if you can, as you answer that question, bring into play your COVID program, because I know, we can't talk today without bringing up COVID because we are living through COVID. And I thought it's very unique what you've done and how I'm not going to say pivoted, but leveraged the available knowledge base that you have in-house and are trying to create value in terms of human health and public health. So talk a little bit about that dichotomy between that tug of war between scientific value, shareholder value, and where does your COVID program fit in all of that?
Yeah, this is really a very interesting topic. Something I've been thinking a lot about. And, with COVID, actually, going back to your previous question, how we really bringing the value to turning the translation of the scientific knowledge into impact. We actually, within 6 months, we start the COVID project. And in February, by August, we already filed IND. Now we finished the phase 1 patient dose completion. And that highlights the power of science, and the scientific value get realized because, we have great platform. We have deep knowledge of the scientific behind understanding of this virus, as well as, how do we generate models to optimize the molecule we are bringing to the patients. So all those, but in the meantime, the struggle we do see is, do we have enough resources to chaperone this all the way to the market? Because as we talked about, making a drug is really, very costly, especially get to phase 2, 3 and commercial manufacturing. So we actually, at that time when we started, our board, it was fully behind it. We got the support to get the discovery part and even all the way to phase 1. But right now, we are looking for partners to bring this drug to patients, supporting us to go with phase 2, 3 and manufacturing. Actually, we encounter a lot of lack of enthusiasm, if you will, so we reach out to big pharmas, we reach out to potential even government agencies, try to be funded. We encounter a lot of challenges, because I think the major reason behind it is people don't see actual value. And, the question, the comments we generally get is, oh, we already have the vaccine. Oh, there's already a couple drugs. How do we going to be commercially successful? And as a scientist, I have a different view. As long as the patients are out there, as long as there's still people dying from this pandemic, we should go all the way out there to do the best we can. But, currently we're still struggling to finding a partner to help us bring this drug to the market. So, we're not giving up. And one of the things in science taught us is you can never give up. So that's just as early as this week, we launched another round of outreach to people trying to, we reach out to government, we reach out to US government funding agency, we reach out to French government funding agency, we reach out to, Chinese. Those are the areas where we have presence because we're multinational. We think we have a drug. We're not there to making, profit out of this. We wanted to bring that drug to patients. I think, that is something, it can be fully aligned. Often, a good drug, good science can really align with commercial success, but sometimes they don't. You cannot high price this drug. We're willing to price the drug as accessible as possible, cheaper than the big pharma would be. But still, we are still needing support and all that. And Ramani, I know you're facing similar challenges as well.
I was just going to say that, which is, I was going to come at it from the pharmaceutical angle, pharmaceutical company angle, which is, big pharma is focused on the big diseases, right? Where the returns are a certain amount and there's certain, gross margins and profit margins, et cetera. We, as Liang, work in the antibiotic space, and that's an infectious disease area, clearly. And it's a very tough sell to funders, to potential partners, because of everything you just said. It doesn't provide the returns that investors are typically used to seeing. And if you can't price in a way that's competitive, you're going to be losing money on a product that you've just marketed. So, but one of the things I want to just kind of pivot to a little bit is, because I think we can spend so much time talking about the value equation. It's such a hotly debated topic, but let's move on for a little bit. So we just talked about COVID. This hit us in March. This hit us as an industry, I think, in March. Things shut down, and we as a group, as a collective group of CEOs who've had to pivot and figure things out, coalesced and trying to figure things out together at some level and independently on other levels. But that has resulted in the need for a certain type of leadership presence within the COVID landscape. Talk to us a little bit about what it means to you to be a leader during COVID times versus to being a leader in non-COVID times. Is it the same? Is it different?
Yeah, it's quite different in my view. First of all, I think, it requires the leader to be more sympathetic, more understanding. And I think a lot of people went through a lot of stress during that time, and I can sense it, and our company is located internationally. Different country has different challenges. And basically, being constantly try to be in tune at different local situations, try to provide solutions differently, like in US, when it started, before everybody was asked to wear mask, I really advocated everybody wearing the mask. And we actually purchased ahead of time, have masks for people. And there were people who have different mentality because it wasn't recommended. In, places where, people cannot come to work and where we are actually doing COVID-19 researches, and there's always a mixture of people want to make a difference, but there's a naturally understandable little bit fear towards working on that project. So how do we really trying to show our understanding, but in the meantime, encouraging people to step up, making a difference. And so what I was really proud at that time is not only people overcome the fear, but they worked extra hours. There's a group team on the COVID project, worked weekends and evenings, and just thinking about, getting from a start of a project to IND filing 6 months. I never experienced this in my life. It's only, possible under this pandemic.
Well, I was going to say, we are living in unprecedented times with the Moderna timeline and the Pfizer timeline, and there's several others, J&J and Novavax. They're all kind of coming right down the pike. So I think, for you and me who know what drug development is, this is not what it typically is, right? No. Or even vaccine development. This is not what it is. So can this be sustained, actually? That's another question I'm curious about. Do you think this pace of R&D can be sustained? Are we in a new paradigm of R&D here?
I think it will influence the future IND paradigm for sure. It will not be as, quick as we did as last year, just because, there's a lot of exceptions were made, right? So we can take certain risks while we start manufacturing before we have the, completed tox study finished. We just had this confidence and we wanted to take that risk. We don't do things sequentially. We rather do them parallel. And FDA has been really also very outstanding, and we got our approval, instead of traditional 4 weeks, we got the later 2.5 weeks to proceed with the study. So everybody was pulling their weight to making things happen quicker. And, of course, some of those spirit will be keeping with us, but there situations where things will be still go back to the sequentially just to lower the risk, so yeah.
Talking about the extraordinary work your team did, I want to pivot a little bit here and just mention here that you have recently been awarded not 1, but 2 awards, or you've been recognized in 2 different ways. I think one was an Extraordinary Woman Advancing Healthcare Award, which was awarded, I think, in September of last year. And then you also received another amazing award or a recognition for being one of the top 50 lead scientists or senior science women in the world. Can you
female founder?
There you go. That's pretty amazing. And so I guess, just again, a minor pivot there, you to come back to what we talked about earlier, or something you mentioned earlier. We can't end this discussion, I think, without, first of all, talking about all the volunteer work you've done and all the, raising your hand, let me help, let me see what I can do, in spite of perhaps not knowing what you're doing or what to do.
Right.
And I want to have you talk a little bit about that as it relates to how important that type of mindset is for people like us in our industry. We spend a lot of time doing, and focusing on our industries. And I think with some of the CEO forums that you and I have been involved in, Liang, there's been a lot of giving back that we've seen, for the community. Talk to us very briefly about some of the work you've done in that space in terms of the giving back and why you think it's important.
Yeah, I think, I benefited in my earlier career getting a lot of mentor and people who is willing to give back. And I think, for me, now, we are in a much better position to give back as well as, to contribute. It's very important to keep that tradition going. That's how we could help the next generation to be successful, and it has greater social impact. And I think, during the whole COVID-19 pandemics, and our teams all, thinking about different ways how to contribute to the society, and as well as, thinking about how to really turn our own work into, especially the COVID-19 neutralizing antibody, to be really helping the society. We actually said from day one, this is a humanitarian effort. We're not going to looking for profit here. We're trying to really just help the patients. So I think with this kind of a mindset, with us being leaders, having this kind of mindset, you can influence your surroundings, your environment, and which in turn cascade to a broader community. And we brainstorm about how to do things more effectively moving forward. But over the years, as we talked about, I've always mentoring female leaders also, not only through the Women's Science and Technology. I'm also a mentor for Global Women Connect. There's an organization one of my mentee co-founded, and it's more presence in Asia, but it's actually internationally, have also people participating in US and Europe as well. So I think, many opportunities like that, and going to even bigger volunteering work or bigger impact. You noted earlier, my husband and I also founded a foundation called the Schweizer Foundation of Arts and Innovation. We host creative artists, generate works, that could be influence the society in general. And it's also, for me, looking at the creativity among the artists, and look at among our scientists, there's a lot of similarity there, and it's very inspiring, and I want to enable them.
Exactly. I mean, innovation, inspiration, and execution, I mean, they all sort of go together. And as you said, the arts and sciences, there's a huge overlap there. So let's kind of end this with one last question to you. And this is a little bit of an off-the-wall question, but just amuse me on this one. So, again, you're such an accomplished scientist and senior executive and CEO, Liang, and even a community worker, if you will. You've given so much back to the community. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think your superpower is?
I think my superpower is passion. I'm passionate about doing anything. And once you have the passion, people around you feel it. So I actually could attract people doing things together with me because we share similar passion and we're having a good time doing it. And also, when you have the passion, when things are not going your way or there's challenges and hurdles, I think one of the things tend to be is you don't give up. Yeah. You just being persistent. That's one of the advice. When last time I was giving a talk at the women's organization I just mentioned earlier, and one of the topic I told them is persistence. Especially for women leaders, we just cannot give up. We encounter a lot of challenges, a lot of doubts, a lot of pushbacks, and because I'm passionate, I'm not easily give up on my objectives or my aims, and trying to keep a positive, strong mindset there. I think that helps me a lot.
Well, given everything you've done, I would say definitely persistence is something you've embodied, and the passion that goes along with it. So Liang, I want to thank you for taking the time this afternoon to chat with me. There's so much more we can cover, but I think we're kind of at the end of our time here. So thank you again. And I want to thank everyone for listening or watching. My name is Ramani Varanasi, and I'm the CEO of XBiotics. And again, I am joined by Liang Schweizer today. So thanks, Liang.
Thank you very much, Ramani. It's such a great pleasure talking to you.
Thanks again.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Bye.